Hey guys, coming up today on Sports Spectrum, a unique story. This is a kid who was 8 years old and Howie DiSavino III and dreamed and said, I want to be a NASCAR driver someday. In 2022, he reached the second highest division of stock car racing, the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So he achieved that dream and he wants to keep going. He wants to get to the highest level of NASCAR and he wants to take over NASCAR. It's his words saying that. But his journey has taken some interesting twists and turns as a kid who grew up on a farm in Chesterfield, Virginia. And then in 2021, at the age of 20, he loses his mom to cancer. So there's a lot to talk about here. There's the highs and then there's the lows. There's staying grounded in God and staying connected to Jesus. And then there's those times when you're angry and you're grieving and sometimes God feels far away. So this was a really good conversation with Howie DiSavino III, up and coming NASCAR driver. And I think he's going to be a guy we're going to follow, we're going to root for, and we're going to see doing some great things on that track down the road. So Howie DiSavino III coming up in just a moment. Just want to remind you about our Sports Spectrum magazine before we get to our interview with Howie. You can go to sportspectrum.com and subscribe right now. Our brand new spring 2024 edition is out now. You can subscribe today at sportspectrum.com. Faith-filled content, family-friendly content, clean content in the sports world. It's very hard to find that nowadays, and it's perfect for those young people, for those children, for those kiddos that love sports. Consider subscribing right now to the Sports Spectrum magazine, and when you do, when you check out, get a one-year subscription. We'll give you a little extra bonus, 15% off a one-year subscription to Sports Spectrum's magazine. Use the code podcast15, podcast15 when you check out, and subscribe 1 year to the Sports Spectrum magazine. Again, you can do all of that over at our website, sportspectrum.com. Great to have Howie DiSavino III here on Sports Spectrum. What's up, Howie? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
Man, I'm good. It's good to see you and great to talk to you. I love that the racing season is back and better than ever, if you will. But I want to start with your faith. That's what this show is about. That's the unique aspect of Sports Spectrum. Tell me about the importance of God in your life and your faith.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely an integral part, especially growing up in a family that had faith pretty much the whole time. It's one of those deals to where for me it's just normal, but while I was moving out, that's one thing that you could struggle with when you move out is just trying to get back into it. So I always tell everyone that God's always on my side and that we're always going to make great things happen. So just with that being said, really, it's awesome to be able to have that happen.
Yeah, it's a relationship, right? And I think you're only 23, you're going to be 23 in April. Like just the idea of going out on your own, it's hard, man. It's suddenly you're not on your parents' faith, but it's a relationship. And I love that you said God is on your side. Does your faith help sustain you as a driver in the role that you're in?
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I tell people a lot of times is, every night I go through the Bible, find specific Bible verses that I can relate to in my own life, whether I'm having a bad day, good day, or if I just really want a powerful Bible verse to touch my heart. And that's one thing that, I have a great community of guys that, I text and also girls that I text and they always love, me sending out like these Bible verses and then me explaining how I feel about it. And then they can have that conversation back to me of what they saw in that specific Bible verse. So it's definitely something that for me is very, very important in the NASCAR world and also just in my own personal life.
Yeah, I know that the NASCAR is very intentional about chapels and offering up spiritual opportunities to grow in the midst of very competitive moments when you guys are racing each other and going out there on the track. But let's go back even further. I love the story that you grew up on a farm. Tell us about that.
Yeah, when I was around 4 years old, my father and mother, they're like, hey, we're going to get on 90 acres and we're going to start a farm. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Well, I didn't have a choice at that point in
Yeah,
time as well.
you're along for the ride, right, Howie?
I was along for the ride. I didn't have a voice in the family yet. I could barely talk probably at that point. And it just came down to, we built that farm from ground up. I mean, it literally looked like when we bought that farm, that piece of land, it looked like a bomb just went off. Like there was no trees there. It was really nothing. And now it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. It's really, really wooded. That's where I hunt. That's where I fish. And we used to have a lot of animals there, and since now we've kind of it's not as much of a farm, just more of a beautiful place to go to.
Chesterfield, Virginia, right?
Oh yeah,
I
in
love
Chesterfield,
it.
Virginia.
I love that. That's wonderful. What's the ideal day for Howie DiSavino III in Chesterfield, Virginia? You mentioned hunting, maybe some fishing. What's an ideal day? Like if you could have the perfect day.
Absolutely. It really just depends on if it's hunting season or not. If it's warm out, I love to hop on the tractor, and go for, and we'll just cut the grass. I mean, we have a 7-acre field. I love cutting grass, especially when you have AC hitting on you in that nice tractor. Maybe drink a beer or two, just relax. And it's just one of those deals to where, that's like my steeple, right? And that's where I go to just relax, hang out by the pool a little bit, maybe go fishing down by that pond. Lake Howie, actually, we named it Lake Howie.
Nice.
And nobody has ever caught more bass than me out of there, so I can thankfully say that. But
Okay. Are you sure about this? We're not. This is fact here. I can go and source this out, and it's going to be accurate. I'm just
you
confirming
can
this.
source it out. You can source it out, and also, you can talk to my dad. They all call me Bass Man for a
Bassman.
reason.
Okay.
Bass Man. But I mean, if it's winter time, I'll go to the dog pens and me and my buddy Dylan Shepard. We will go dog hunting and we'll just have some fun. Those are my days that are just the most relaxing,
Hmm.
but also they're the most exhausting too, because you want to do everything in one day.
Right. Yeah. And you can't get it all in one day, and there's always something missing or something you wish you could have gotten to. As you're a kid growing up on a farm in Chesterfield, Virginia, who were your heroes? Who were the people that you just admired, that you were fans of?
Yeah, I know it's a pretty cliche answer, but it was my dad. I mean, my dad, he's such a hardworking man. My mother as well. Just watching her actually run the full farm, because my dad had to go to work, and so my mom would just take care of the full farm. That was her full time job, was selling eggs. She made goat's milk soap and like sold a lot of those. I don't know, like she was crazy, but it was one of those deals to where they instilled in me hard work and dedication to finishing a project. And my mom definitely did that for us, because one time she took our truck and she came home with 3 sheep, and we had no fence up for it. So we had 24 hours to build a 1-acre fence.
Was that mom? Was mom doing that a little intentional, just to see how the kids would respond?
Oh, it wasn't the kids. The girls were loving it, and then me and my pops had to build
Oh,
the,
you
the,
and
the
dad
full.
had to do it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. 3 sheep.
So
Okay.
so I reckon that she wanted to put pressure on me and my old man.
No, that's good. Well, that's going to teach you a lot of valuable lessons early on. Like, hey, when the rubber meets the road, we gotta get moving here.
Oh yeah.
Did you know that racing was always going to be the direction God was going to pull you towards?
No, growing up, I really wanted to be a full-time rancher. You know,
Rancher.
um,
Yeah.
I want to say move out west, but kind of deal with that type of deal. I always love being on the farm, being outside, waking up early, doing all that, and I fell in love with motors. I was around like 8 years old. Well, at 4 years old, I got my first four-wheeler.
Hmm.
But like around those times is when I really started to fall in love with motorsports.
Hmm.
And when I was 8 years old, my dad took me to my first NASCAR race, and then that's where it clicked. And I looked at my dad at 8 years old and said, "I'm going to be a NASCAR driver one day."
Wow. You knew it.
I just knew I mean, you know how kids are. We always say something, but it doesn't mean it's going to come to fruition. But I told him, I said, I'll work for this, and we got into a car when I was 13 years old, and ever since then, it's been history. and we've made it to NASCAR. So
Yes, you
I can say
did.
that I have fulfilled something.
Yes, you did. There was a dream that an 8-year-old had that 22-year-old or 21-year-old at the time, Howie DiSavino, got to achieve. Do you remember any of the drivers that you admired and you looked up to, and then you were like, okay, that's my guy, or those are my guys that I want to emulate?
Oh yeah, I mean, another Chesterfield native. He actually grew up 2 miles away from my house. Is Denny Hamlin,
Okay,
and
2 miles. That's
so
pretty close.
yeah, 2 miles away. We actually had the same crew chief at Southside Speedway for late model stock cars, all that stuff. So I basically took the same path that he did to get to NASCAR. But Dale Jr. was always one of my favorites, and I actually raced against him in the Xfinity Series in 22. In
Hmm.
22, I was 21 years old. No, actually, I was 20 years old, getting ready. And 2 days later, I was 22,
Wow.
and I out qualified him, and that was pretty awesome.
I'd say so. By the way, my journey took me through ESPN when I was working there, and I got to spend a day with Dale Jr. This is maybe
Hmm.
13 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. And
Hmm.
he could not, I don't know if you got a chance to actually meet him and spend time with him in that race, but he could not have been a nicer human. Like,
Oh
he's a legend, and he comes in, and obviously his dad's a legend, and it's Dale Jr. It's Dale Jr. And he immediately puts you at ease, and you're just like, oh, this is just a regular dude who
yeah.
is kind and just a cool guy, cool cat. I thought it was awesome to hang out with him. Did you get a chance to actually hang and talk to him a little bit?
I did see him at driver intros, but the only problem he was holding his daughter and he was, signing.
Of
He
course.
he was signing everything. I didn't want to be that one guy
You'll
to
get
walk up
another
and go,
moment,
"Hey,
Howie. There'll be another one.
yeah, there will be," but he knows who I am. I mean,
Yeah.
I out qualified him,
Yeah.
and so that was purely just awesome, to just be in his presence, and he did pass me about 5 laps in on the outside, but it was cool because when I looked over, I saw 88. I'm like, oh man, I'm right next to the legend, the guy that I grew up watching.
In the
It
middle
was
of the
so
race,
awesome.
you got to actually compose yourself pretty quickly there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I try everything in my power to stay by him for like 10 laps,
Mm.
and yeah, I mean he is just a legend.
That's awesome. Take me inside a race car. I think, it's going, I don't know how fast it goes, 200 miles an hour. That's my guess. What's it like exactly to be in a race car when it's going that, like the adrenaline? I think people don't have, I mean, we just watch the race. Oh, come on, go faster, go, get around this guy, whatever. We have no idea what it's really truly like to be inside those cars.
Yeah, it really just depends on the racetrack. Like Martinsville, that's one of those tracks that feels extremely fast, but you're really not going that fast. Talladega, is you're running 200 miles an hour essentially, and it's so big that you feel like you're going 80 miles down the highway, 80 miles an hour down the highway, just extremely close to each other. Now, when we start getting three wide, that's when your heart starts pumping a little bit more. But, you know, I'll say, one of the fastest tracks I've honestly been to is Kansas. And I don't know why. I mean, it's just a mile and a half, but bailing a car off into a corner going 185 miles an hour, you have to stay on the throttle and just modulate it a little bit. That is what, just makes you pucker up and go, wow, that's like anything could happen right now. If I push the throttle down too hard, I'm going to spin out and slam right to this wall, essentially. So it really just depends on the racetrack that you go to. But I would have to say that every NASCAR driver, race car driver, we have to be really good at multitasking. We got to look at our gauges. We got to shift. We have to brake and then gas up. It's different than what a lot of people think it is, and that's one thing that I've always loved growing up was especially in high school when I was racing late model stock cars. I would have these kids walk up to me and go, "I think I could beat you in a race." And the first thing that I would always say to them, there was this one kid that said that, and I said, "Hey," I said, do you know how to drive a stick shift?" And he was like, "No." I said, "Well, then I've already won."
Wow.
And it's one of those deals to where you get behind the wheel of just a regular car, and you're a decent driver, right? Do you think that you could hop into a NASCAR and go? I'm like, well, you don't understand the sensation of speed yet. As soon as the sensation of speed really hits you, most people they'll go like 100 miles an hour. They go, wow, I need to back down. I'll go 150 into a corner and then say, all right, now I need to back down. So it's just a difference of growing up in that lifestyle versus not growing up like that.
When you in 2022 you got to the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which is just awesome. But somewhere along the line, there's a journey that you take that gets you to that moment. What was the big break? What was the moment when you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually starting to come to fruition"? Take us through that.
I think that was more. I'll even go back to the ARCA days. That's when I got my first big break with Wintron Racing. Now it's AM Racing. They let me test one of their ARCA cars, and they pulled me out of the seat. I thought I was just going down there to have a fun time behind the wheel of an ARCA car, and they pulled me out, and and this guy named J.R. Longley, he pulled me into the hauler, which usually that's not a good sign, when you get pulled into the hauler. Everyone's sitting there, and he said, "Well, son, how do you feel about racing Elko in 4 weeks?" And I was like, "That's pretty awesome, like that's like I would love to do that." And he was like, "Well, you're going to Elko in 4 weeks." I was like, "Oh wow." But the big guy that gave me the break was Jamie Jones and Kevin Sawinski. So Jamie said that in 5 laps he'll be able to tell Austin and my dad and my mom if I was ready to go ARCA racer or not. And I think like 3 laps in, he's put a thumbs up to everyone, and that, ever since then, we've been on that journey of making it happen.
Wow. 2021 was a I would imagine there was a lot of great things happening professionally for you, but there's also going through the loss of your mother. She lost her battle with cancer. Can you tell us about mom a little bit? You mentioned her earlier about being one of your heroes, but just what that was like to kind of watch her battle and fight through that time.
Yeah, absolutely. She got diagnosed when I was 14 years old, and it was bad because we found out on her birthday.
Mm,
That's the day that we found out that she was diagnosed with cancer. So that was a kick to the whole family. And I mean, that dinner was her birthday dinner was not a good birthday dinner. That was pretty rough.
yeah.
And she was told that she has 3 months to live, this and that. Ends up, so we're all preparing that our mother's going to pass away, in a short amount of time. Sure enough, I mean, the reason why she's one of my heroes is because she always kept fighting. So she had 3 months to live, lived 5 years,
Wow.
and she's kept fighting and fighting and fighting.
Yeah.
And it just came down to one of those deals to where, the longer that like she would get better, and there was one week that she was in remission, and I had to take her back to the doctors again and this and that, but they never did a scan on her brain. Found out that she had 14 brain tumors. And so that is actually what made her pass away, was the 14 brain tumors. It was just timing of that. So I moved down into Carolina when I was 19 years old. I just told my mom and my dad, I said, I'm ready to go down there. But I would come home as much as possible to visit my mom and my dad. So it really just came down to, that year was hard because I was in between 2 truck races. I was in between Bristol and Vegas, and I came home. That was the last week that my mom ever walked. It was about 40 days before Bristol. And so I'm sitting there hanging out with the family, this and that. Me and my dad are just trying to figure out what to do. Like we're just going to work on the farm, making whatever she would want to happen.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of those deals to where she told me, no matter what, I want you to run Bristol and Vegas. I said, all right, sounds good. So it's the week of Bristol. I don't even know because I'm just so zoned out at this point from everything going on. That basically someone said, hey, you have Bristol this week. I'm like, oh wow. So I had to go say my final goodbyes to my mom. That was extremely hard. And so I raced Bristol Thursday night. Saturday night, my mom passed away,
Mm,
and then I had to go run Vegas that very next week. So it's definitely like one of those deals to where I basically watched my mother not physically pass away, but I watched her deteriorate and pass away in front of my eyes. So that was definitely one of those deals to where I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Like this is rough. I mean, it really is. It's just rough to be a 20-year-old right now.
yeah. Was it tough spiritually as well? Like I know, especially for young people, when you go through a loss like that, there's all sorts of different forms of grief, right? There's anger and
Mhm.
there's the stages of grief that you're taught when you're taking classes in school. But then there's also God, and it's trying to wrap your head around, okay, why would a good God do something like this, right? And then you realize,
Right.
okay, it's not God, it's just human nature. We're all gonna perish someday. What was that like for you to kind of grow spiritually? I mean, you talked about your faith and its importance right now in your life. What was it like then, just kind of grieving and still seeing God as who He is?
Yeah, there was a big period in my life when I was 21 years old, um, where I was extremely angry. I was drinking a lot, doing just stupid stuff, and I kind of fell out of it with God. And
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I tell people all the time is, um, there's a Bible verse, and it goes something like, I can't exactly quote it
it's all right.
right away, but it basically says, "I had to put you through this pain so that you would return to me."
Hmm. Sounds like Job. I
And
don't know if it's in Job, but it sounds like it's the story of
it,
Job.
it might have
Yeah.
been in Job, but yeah, it's just it when I look at the Bible now, I get excited every night going through it and hearing what my friends think of it. Um, but back then, I mean, I was extremely angry. I was extremely, you know, basically just very ungodly at
Sure.
that point in time.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got back into it, a buddy of mine texted me and he said, "Hey, I want to know more about the Lord." So I said, "Okay, that's fine, man. Like we'll go through the Bible together." And ever since I've been living down here, I literally right across the street from me right now is a church. And so I've been living here for about 9 months, just in this place. And I'm like, it's kind of bad that I have a church I could walk to. It's a 2-minute walk, and I've never been there before. So the other day, I finally just got up and said, "All right, let's go to church." And I mean, that sermon touched my heart. The sermon the week after touched my heart. I was like, "Well, this is my church now." So
Wow.
now I drive over there because I'm not going to walk across the street because that's just too much effort.
I get it.
I'm
Yeah. I mean, you
truck.
drive for a living. You might as well just drive to church too, not walk it.
Absolutely. So it all came down to all that.
Yeah. I think it's life is full of ups and downs. It's just full of highs and lows, and obviously losing a parent or losing someone close that you love is the lowest. But the whole point of the gospel, from what I've read, is it's a redemptive story. It's the Lord sending His Son Jesus to die on a cross because we're lost without Him, and it's just really cool to understand that redemption is possible. And I feel like your story is just getting written, my friend. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think the same thing. It's just, I think that we all go through these trials to really figure out more about ourselves, but also to prove how bad we want something or how bad we are going, what we will do to accomplish it as well.
Yeah, that's good. Howie DiSavino III is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. As we wind down real quick, last year, 2023, you took the year off, had some family issues, some things you wanted to work through, right? But your goal is still to race here in 2024 and get back on that track.
Absolutely. That's the goal. We are back. We are ready. We are hungry. We are ready to basically take over NASCAR. That's the way that I say it. My team, they back me up, and all we got to do is just get a few more partners, and we're ready to rock and roll with it.
I love it. Well, I can't wait to watch what the Lord does in your life this year on the track. Last question I ask a lot of our guests here when we discuss on Sports Spectrum, but it's about lessons, right? And what we're
Mhm.
learning in the journey. So right now, as we talk, what do you think is the great lesson that God has taught you when you think about where you are right now?
I would have to say patience. Patience is exactly what he's teaching me right now with these partners that I'm talking to. Is be patient and it will all come together. The biggest thing about what my process is you have to rush through everything. And so I think right now he's slowing me down. He's saying, "Hey, I'm not going to give you this and this and this right now. you got to go work for it a little bit more. You got to do this and that. And this is why I'm, pitting cars now.
Yeah.
Is because I'm still in the NASCAR space, but now I'm doing something else as well. So I have two different jobs. I market, and also I'm a front tire changer.
It keeps you in it, right? Like I don't think people understand the importance of a pit crew either, especially on a casual sort of fan level. The diehards know, but the casual fan who kind of turns on NASCAR, turns on a race car, event on a weekend and watches for a little bit, I don't think they understand the team. It's really a team. It's not just one guy getting behind a race car, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other day when I was practicing, I was doing pit practice. I literally told all the guys there, I said, I will never complain about a loose wheel ever again.
Because
I now know how hard it is. But that's the thing is, like, now I'm a firm believer, if you're not in the seat, you should go pit some cars, because then you would understand how hard it is, and also how athletic these guys are. I mean, so some of these guys have played in the NFL, or they almost made it to the NFL. And I mean, pulling off a tire, you're pulling off an 85-pound tire. And these guys are carrying two in their arms, and they have to jack up a 3,600-pound car, in one pump. It's crazy how athletic these guys are. And, I just want to have given them props. If you asked me 2 years ago, right, I'd be why do I have a loose wheel? Why this and that? But now I understand it's difficult. It's tough. It's not it's almost like racing. You have to learn all the small things to get it perfect.
And it's going to probably make you a better driver when you get back in that seat again, and you understand everything that's going on around it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it gives me a lot of respect for them, for those guys. And I made some really, really good friends with it as well. And I'm like, hey, well, when I do race, I hope that y'all pit my car, because then we'll all have a friendship.
Absolutely. Well, that's what it is too. It's building a team and building community, and driving or walking across the street to head to that church as well to hear that message, Howie DiSavino. Listen, great conversation here. Thanks for joining us. We're cheering you on, buddy, and all the best to you, and can't wait to see what God does on your racing journey. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Jason, for having me.
And many thanks to Howie DiSavino III for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. He's got a really cool story. He's a great young man. I spent a few minutes after we stopped recording just talking to him a little bit more about his journey, and I'm just impressed with this guy. And if you're looking for somebody to root for in NASCAR, maybe you're not a big NASCAR fan, maybe you're a huge NASCAR fan, this is a guy you can cheer on and root for. I likened it to a late round pick in the NFL, or even an undrafted free agent, when he's kind of behind the eight ball a little bit and has to push through, but he's doing it. And he's a guy that I think at some point in 2024, we're going to see him back inside a car and racing, and can't wait to watch his journey unfold. And we appreciate Howie for being our guest today on Sports Spectrum, and really being transparent too on what he was walking through when his mom lost her battle with cancer. This is a young man at 20. I mean, when you lose your mom that young, it can wreck you. And it sounds like it did a little bit with him, but sometimes God is working behind the scenes in ways we can't really see or even figure out. And often God will use really difficult situations like that to draw us back to him. And it sounds like he's done that with Howie. So we appreciate him being our guest today on Sports Spectrum, and wish him nothing but the best. We thank you as well for tuning in to today's show. You can go check out our website, sportspectrum.com, for all of our content. I mean, articles and devotionals and podcasts, all available for free at the website, sportspectrum.com. And whatever app you're listening to this podcast on, make sure you click that subscribe or that follow button so you don't miss any more episodes like today's with Howie DiSavino III. Subscribe today to the Sports Spectrum podcast everywhere podcasts are found. And then lastly, really just tell someone about Sports Spectrum. We love what we get to do here, but ultimately we love to point people to Jesus. And that's what this is about. And ultimately, maybe you sharing about Sports Spectrum can share a story, a podcast, an article, something. It can help lead someone else to Christ. Like, use Sports Spectrum as a resource to share the gospel. How cool is that? So we appreciate all of your support, and we love you guys. And we hope you'll join us next time for another conversation here on the show. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon. Hey, thanks for watching our Sports Spectrum video. For more conversations on the intersection of sports and faith, check out our website, sportspectrum.com.